All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack the fascinating psychology behind what makes people naturally want to follow a leader. Whether you're sitting in a corporate boardroom, navigating the political arena, or standing in a military command center, the fundamental rules of respect are exactly the same. If you've ever walked out of a meeting thinking, man, I had the right ideas, so why didn't my message land the way I wanted? Trust me, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to explore the hidden mechanics of authority. We'll look at why sheer competence is never quite enough and how your behavioral signals are actually what dictate whether your colleagues respect you. So, you might think you've got an entire meeting or at least a polished 5-minute elevator pitch to make a solid impression, right? Well, neuroscience tells us something completely different. And frankly, it's a bit staggering. When you walk into a room, the biological hardware of the people looking at you is working incredibly fast. Literally 100 milliseconds. That is all it takes for the human brain to make trait judgments about you. Yes, before you even finish your very first sentence, your observers are already reading your nonverbal cues and deciding if you have authority. It's this entirely unconscious, split-second evaluation of your capability, your confidence, and ultimately, your right to lead. To help map out the internal psychology of leadership and fix our blind spots, today's explainer covers 1. The illusion of dominance. 2. Decoding executive presence. 3. Mastering nonverbal signals. 4. Owning the decision. And 5. Pitfalls that sabotage respect. Let's get into it. Starting with Section 1, the illusion of dominance, and why intimidation is an obsolete leadership tactic. For decades, we kind of mistook loud, table-pounding dominance for decisive leadership. But think about the massive contrast between these two paradigms. Fear-based authority relies heavily on intimidation, raised voices, or even subtle humiliation. And what that does is create what psychologists call survival mode. When a team is stuck in survival mode, innovation just dies. Meetings go completely silent, people start doing the bare minimum just to avoid a reprimand, and eventually your absolute best high performers are going to walk right out the door. Modern authority, on the other hand, is fundamentally different. It's built on clear expectations and real emotional regulation. A leader who actually stays calm under severe pressure naturally earns respect. Because intimidation, that only creates forced compliance. But emotional regulation, that builds true, lasting commitment. And the absolutely crucial point here is that this isn't just some soft corporate wellness theory. It holds up in the absolute most intense environments on Earth. This insight comes directly from a RAND Corporation study looking at military leaders in combat zones. And they're finding, even in high-stakes, life-and-death military operations, relying on fear over mutual respect is a losing strategy. If leading by example and team building is what works in a literal combat zone, it is absolutely what you need in your Tuesday morning marketing meeting. Strong leaders simply do not need a fragile ego to be effective. Moving right along to Section 2, decoding executive presence and demystifying that elusive it factor. For the longest time, people just called this the it factor, kind of assuming you were either born with it or you just weren't. But executive presence was actually formally defined by Sylvia Ann Hewlett back in 2014. It essentially boils down to your leadership vibes. Can you command a room? Can you inspire others to enthusiastically follow your lead? It is definitely not some mystical aura. It's a highly predictable, entirely learnable set of psychological and behavioral signals. In fact, research from the Center for Talent Innovation breaks this presence down into 3 specific pillars. First up is gravitas. A full 67% of senior executives say gravitas, which is that projection of true, unshakable credibility, is the absolute most important factor for promotion. Second is communication. This is about how masterfully you control your voice, your body language, and your conciseness. And third is appearance. Now, appearance isn't just about wearing wildly expensive suits. It's really about situational respect. It's showing up to a tech startup in smart casual or a board meeting in formal wear to signal that you understand and respect the context of the people you're working with. Now, if you're wondering, can I actually learn this stuff? The answer is a resounding yes. Think of the most effective CEO or political figure you can imagine. Their presence acts like a massive multiplier for everyone else's productivity. To put that into perspective, an MIT Sloan study found that training these exact soft skills garners a staggering 250% return on investment in less than a year. The professionals who mastered these exact skills made their entire teams more effective simply by being in the same room. Let's jump right into Section 3, Mastering Nonverbal Signals. This is the silent behavioral code of command. Okay, these 6 micro-behaviors are literally your best defense against difficult colleagues who might try to destabilize you. Confident posture is all about grounded stillness, avoiding that nervous fidgeting so you signal embodied power. Maintaining interested neutrality in your facial expressions keeps you from over-smiling just to seek approval. And think about your voice. Under stress, our pitch naturally shoots up and we talk way too fast. If you intentionally drop your vocal pace by about 10% and use downward inflections, your brain actually catches up and you project massive authority. Add in proxemics, which just means confidently occupying your physical space, along with calibrated eye contact and intentional open palm gestures. Together, these cues send an unconscious but totally undeniable signal to everyone around you that you are fully in command of yourself. This nonverbal mastery becomes absolutely vital when a toxic colleague interrupts you to try and steal your momentum. If that happens, using a firm boundary statement like, "I'm going to finish this point first so the team has the full context," paired with direct eye contact and a solid 2-second pause, nonverbally insists on professional respect. Notice you don't raise your voice. You don't get visibly angry. You simply hold your space. And when you do speak, a really successful leader uses what author Carl Albrecht calls helicopter language. You fly sky high to explain the abstract, big-picture vision, like, say, mapping out a 5-year market strategy, and then you instantly drop that helicopter right down to ground level to give the concrete, granular details of what needs to happen by this Friday. Mastering this vertical communication proves to your team that you are a pilot capable of handling both the long-term strategy and the daily execution. Next up, Section 4, Owning the Decision and Structuring Accountability in Teams. So we're shifting from how a leader looks and speaks to how a leader actually acts operationally. Because as the military often points out, effective units need centralized control with decentralized execution. That requires a clean system, like the DASI framework. D is the driver, managing the project and corralling stakeholders. C stands for contributors, giving their subject matter advice. And I is for the informed folks who just need to know the outcome. But the real linchpin here is the A, the approver. That is one single person with the ultimate vote. Decision ownership is hands down the most vital element of team progress, because without a clear approver, everyone just assumes someone else is handling it, and your momentum completely stalls out. Now, the real game changer when using a framework like DASI is deeply understanding the difference between consensus and consent. Consensus is a massive trap. Whether you're trying to pass a corporate budget or a complex political policy, waiting for full agreement from every single person puts way too much power into the hands of a single dissenter. It completely paralyzes progress. True authority figures seek consent. This means you resolve the major, valid objections, but you do not need everyone to be perfectly happy to move forward. Consent beautifully balances diverse viewpoints without ever sacrificing your speed. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, Pitfalls that Sabotage Respect, and the common traps you need to avoid. You know, it's often the really small, subtle habits that can completely undermine your credibility. You'll want to avoid these 4 specific traps. First, passive or tentative words, like, "I think maybe we could," instantly signal uncertainty, even if you know for a fact you are right. Second, relying on verbal fillers like and rushing to answer a question robs you of the immense gravity that a simple, quiet pause naturally provides. Third, never assume your silent success and hard work will just speak for themselves. They really don't. You have to actively shape your professional brand. And fourth, definitely avoid faking invulnerability when you don't actually have all the answers. And as this Richard Branson quote highlights, another huge pitfall for a lot of modern leaders is ignoring your own intuition when it's time to make a fast, high-stakes decision. Data is critical, of course it is, but a decisive leader with true executive presence knows exactly when to step away from analysis paralysis, trust their gut, and navigate their team straight through the noise. Finally, the absolute biggest trap of all is faking certainty. Research out of Harvard Business School shows that voters, employees, and investors all eventually see right through fake bravado. Instead, you need what's called well-calibrated confidence. This means being completely brutally honest about the inherent risks and uncertainties of a situation, while still expressing firm, absolute confidence in your ability to assess those facts and guide your team through them. It anchors your leadership in reality, rather than some fragile illusion. I really hope this explainer has given you a solid blueprint to take true ownership of your presence. From eliminating that toxic intimidation, to mastering that crucial 100-millisecond physical impression, to leading with well-calibrated confidence. I'll leave you with this final thought to reflect on as you step into your next meeting. Are you projecting the quiet confidence of a leader people actually want to follow? Or are you just relying on your title? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep practicing these tools.